Parliament's Ad Hoc Committee investigating police corruption wrapped up its hearings this week after hearing testimonies from Deputy Police Minister Boshielo, Acting Police Minister Firoz Cachalia and Advocate Andrea Johnson from the investigating Directorate against corruption. Boshielo told the committee she initially thought that the directive to disband the political killings task team issued by suspended Minister Senzo Mchunu was fake. Minister Cachalia raised concerns over the handling of the critical investigation dockets and senior SAPS officials' conduct. Advocate Johnson highlighted challenges facing the criminal justice system amid allegations of political interference and corruption. To help us unpack these developments, we are joined by a crime expert, Chad Thomas. But first, let's take a look at what came out of this week's proceedings.
The minister's letter and directive, which was issued on the 31st of December 2024, while it was circulating in the social media. And I assumed it was fake until when the minister called me in the early January, around 6-7, to inform me that the letter that was circulating was not fake. He wrote it himself.
His appearance before the public, in full military regalia, armed and so forth, worried me. And I made a statement to that effect after my appointment.
If you just take the Khumalo matter, just stand alone. Of course, the members of this House can say, what were you doing? That is a standalone matter. What is it doing in your mandate? It is in our mandate in terms of there is corruption, then there's the argument. But that's not serious corruption. But what is serious corruption? Does the manipulation and bypassing of processes, putting people in strategic appointments, isn't that what got us where it got us to in terms of state capture? And then you say, serious? Is serious money? Is serious the offense and the office bearers who are entrusted with these positions, who bypass these positions? And then let's just say, I lose that argument. The IDAC mandate can also look at fraud, which you would see in the charge sheet. It can look at issues of fraud, forgery, uttering theft, and any other matter that involves dishonesty. So as it stands alone, even on its own, and you take the corruption and you say to me, Madam IDAC, it's gone. There are still matters that fall within the ambit of IDAC for it to investigate and prosecute.
Right, let's bring in crime expert Chad Thomas, who's standing by. Chad, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for your time. As we take stock of what's come out of these inquiries, we know that Deputy Police Minister Boshielo, who says she first saw the directive to disband the PKTT on social media and assumed it was fake. And in fact, she's not the first evidence person to give evidence before these commissions to say such a thing. She says that she thought it was fake until the minister himself confirmed it. Was this the reaction you were expecting from a deputy minister?
Hi, I'm Paul, and good afternoon to the viewers. It's not what we would have anticipated, nor did we anticipate the other, because we have two deputy ministers of police, the other deputy minister of police, Castle Matade, telling the public during the inquiry and the committee hearing that he did not actually have a set of deliverables for the entire time in which he's now in this administration. It seems like Minister Mchunu was operating on his own. He wasn't taking guidance or cooperating or communicating rather with his two junior ministers, his two deputies. And it would seem like this just indicates a complete disarray within the top management as well as the executive of the police. And again, it comes down to that bizarre date, 31 December 2024. This letter goes out. We're now hearing people weren't consulted. We're now hearing they didn't even know that it was going to be issued, that they thought it was a sham. It just shows that there is this problem in respect of unified decisions not being made.
And I mean, we, on the other end, heard the very descriptive moments before that letter came out from Minister Senzo Mchunu himself, speaking about how he was in rural KZN and had a long time to think about this letter before penning it. We also heard the Deputy Minister admitting that she was quite disappointed not to have been consulted by Minister Mchunu before that directive, which in fact makes you wonder, should deputies really be left out of such major decisions?
Look, it wasn't just the deputies that were left out. The IMC was also left out. The executive of the police was left out of this. The leadership, the Parliamentary Oversight Committee, everybody was left out. This was a decision made solely by Senzo Mchunu, based on advice that he received from third parties that we do not know at this point in time. There's rumors, there's innuendo, there's speculation about who may have been whispering in his ear. But it comes down to what we all are quite obviously seeing now playing out at both Madlanga as well as Ad Hoc, and that is that there was factionalism at the very top of the police leadership, and that through this factionalism, they were using the minister as a means to an end to be able to achieve their objectives of getting rid of one group of police officers so that other police officers could maintain or take over control of our policing service. That's all it comes down to if you look at it in the most simplistic of manners.
In fact, the new acting Police Minister Firoz Cachalia also admitted that he as well didn't understand the reasoning behind disbanding the PKTT, especially with political motivated killings still ongoing. Interestingly, even some of those who testified before him also saying the very same thing. They can't make sense of that directive either. So far, no one has really made sense of that, which one can't help but read between the lines at this point.
I think Cachalia needs to be a little bit more firm and decisive in respect of his testimony and his commentary on this entire matter. He goes back to the fact that he was upset and disappointed at seeing somebody in camouflage. Well, that's a uniform that's issued to certain members of the police. The Provincial Commissioner of the KZN, Mkhwanazi, was entitled to wear that on the July 6th presser, and he did. I don't know why we're harping on these strange issues that Cachalia likes to raise at the various commissions and ad hoc committees, because at the heart of all of this is a decision that was made unilaterally by one man that could have potentially stonewalled very serious investigations taking place, not just in KwaZulu-Natal, but throughout the Republic, involving organized crime elements that are involved in murder for hire that have infiltrated the very top ranks of the police. We need to get away from this whole scenario of this July 6th presser not following protocol, the members shouldn't have been wearing camo. That's irrelevant at this point in time. What's relevant now is that this is out in the open, and we as the public are learning something new every single day. And to be quite honest with you, what we're learning every day is frightening. It's shocking for me, and I'm somebody that's on the peripheries of law enforcement, working in the private sector. I don't know how unsettling this must be for the public at large, hearing every single day how tarnished our police force was at the very, very top.
With all those startling revelations, why do you think that the alarm was raised on the aspects that weren't really seemingly that important? I mean, the outfit, the alarm itself seemed to be about the briefing rather than the content of what was coming out of those explosive revelations.
Great question, Paul. It's almost like it's deflection and projection. When you hear people going on about things that don't really have much substance and not concentrating on the important aspects, you start questioning their motives. When one listened to Advocate Johnson going on about the IDAC's actual functionality and what their protocols are and what they can or cannot investigate, and how she justified the investigation and subsequent arrest and enrollment of the case against Khumalo et al., it's almost as if she's trying to find a rationale for why they did what they did so quick. We know about dozens of cases that came out of Zondo that still need to be finalized and enrolled. Why are they going for this? Is it low-hanging fruit? Was it because it was good to show that this unit was coming out, guns blazing? Or is there another narrative at play? So I didn't like her carrying on, and it was almost as if she was protesting too much by going into the whole background as into the establishment of IDAC. Our understanding of IDAC is, yes, fraud and corruption, but mostly around Zondo. Now we're jumping the gun. Other cases haven't been enrolled, but suddenly cases with Khumalo and others are enrolled.
Yeah. In fact, looking at IDAC head Andrea Johnson, she in fact agreed that politicians are in fact involved in the SAPS tender scandal, including that case of Vusmusi Matlala. So if senior figures are implicated in these irregularities, how safe are ordinary South Africans? I mean, you yourself have spoken about how absorbing all this testimony has meant for you as somebody who works with all of this information. And given what we've seen in past cases, can the public trust that justice will actually be served?
I did not realize that the capture was at this extent or to this level. We all knew for the last 25 years, which is a quarter of a century, that there were issues within the police leadership ever since Celebi, as the first non-police officer, was appointed to the highest police officer of the land, that being Commissioner of Police in 2000. And we've seen massive issues with the likes of Mdluli and others. However, it's also trickled down to our local policing with our metros. When one hears the EMPD chief speaking about how his department was effectively hijacked from him and how his life was threatened by one of his deputies, who then usurped him and took over that department, and the relationship that person had with the likes of Vusi Matlala, who's been in bed with politicians, accused of funding political campaigns, receiving a 360 million rand tender from SAPS for wellness, it boggles the mind that our country is functioning at this point in time. But it answers a lot of questions as to why crime is so high in this country. With these fights taking place at the very top, how do you expect the members at the bottom to actually execute their duties?
And looking at the arrests of Lieutenant General Dumisani Khumalo and others, Johnson had emphasized that everything was done respectfully and above board. How do we reconcile this with Mkhwanazi's claims that these actions were in fact meant to intimidate PKTT members?
So far, what Mkhwanazi came out with at July 6 hasn't been disproven. There's been a smear campaign. There's been people trying to insinuate that he was jumping the gun because there were imminent arrests of both himself and Masemola. None of this has been proven. But everything that he said is coming out from independent third parties, from other related sources. We're hearing how the media played such an effective role. We go back to the EMPD story that I chatted about a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
You hear about how the ex-deputy chief, Spies, examined questions received from Jeff Wicks, a journalist, and found that those questions actually had credibility in respect of blue lights being issued to civilians and civilians losing blue lights and sirens and going onto the apron at OR Tambo. It's a frightening situation.
Very well. Thank you so much for weighing in on the conversation. We're going to have to leave it there for now. Crime expert Chad Thomas giving us a sense of some of the big stories of the week and some of the startling revelations coming out of Parliament's Ad Hoc Committee.